Everybody, the Steve Nash era, it is over in Brooklyn. The two sides deciding to part ways, go live their lives, ending a partnership that produced a lot more bad than good, right? So calling it a mutual decision. So basically the Nets were like, hey, Steve, you're fired. And he says, yeah, I agree.
Thank God I don't have to answer questions about this team anymore.
For real.
Brooklyn then lost to the Bulls last night, dropping them to 2-6 on the season. Welcome to the Sweat, everyone.
Yep.
I'm Jesse Cofield. He's Emerson Latzia.
Indeed.
Indubitably.
Yeah, that's exactly, that's too big of a word for me. The Gojo Gang is, they're going to join us coming up. We're going to talk Game 4 of the World Series. We'll give some odds out. Speaking of odds, we'll talk some Week 9 over, under, looking at some game totals, PGA Tour price check. We got it all. But yeah, let's go ahead and bring in our NBA panel first. Let's talk some best bets for tonight's slate. Let's talk with DK Nation's Chinmay Vaidya. We got RotoWire's Nick Whalen here in the house as well. Nick, what's it going to take to fix this very sad situation in Brooklyn right now?
I tell you what, I don't know if the solution is bringing in the suspended, disgraced coach of the Boston Celtics to magically solve everything. X's and O's wise, I get it. I think Ime Udoka is a pretty big upgrade over Steve Nash. I think they had this vision that Steve Nash would kind of be a spiritual leader of this team, kind of a team that would run itself almost in the same way that we've seen Steve Kerr, I think, not to discredit what he's done in Golden State, but, just kind of be the culture setter on a really good team that felt like it didn't need coaching. And as it turns out, the Brooklyn Nets do need to be coached. And now they're going in a completely different direction, more of a disciplinarian type, I suppose, in a number of ways for Ime Udoka. And, in terms of saving this season, I don't know what really can be done here. I just don't think the roster is all that good. I know over at the DraftKings Sportsbook, the Nets, they were around like 6 or 7 to 1 at the beginning of the year. They're closer to 9 to 1 now to win the title. I never really got that. I mean, I know having Kevin Durant alone, puts you in the mix, but at this point in his career, he's not quite the same guy as far as being able to completely carry a team night to night. And there's so much talent around the league now that just having 2 superstars on one team in Durant and Kyrie, that's no longer enough to just pencil you in for 55 games and the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, you just can't get away with that anymore. Like, too many teams have too much talent throughout the league. I don't think the Nets really have any shot as of right now, as currently constructed, to win the title.
Chinmay, what is Brooklyn's biggest problem right now, and how can it be fixed?
I don't really know that there's a solution to this. When you have a star player who's basically doing whatever he wants, and the organization is sheltering him by not forcing him to speak to the media, not forcing him to be accountable for his actions, and basically letting him do whatever and run the show, there's really no solution to this. And, Joe Tsai and Sean Marks have basically allowed Kyrie Irving to do whatever he wants. And to this point, it has not worked out very well for them. Last season, we saw that Kyrie refused to take the COVID vaccine to comply with the New York City mandate, and that cost him basically half the season until the Nets then allowed him to play in their road games because they were down so many players. This season, he takes his crazy conspiracy theories to the next level.
Yep.
And basically promotes them on his platform that he has. And the Nets have refused to come down on him. Even the NBA has refused to come down on him. And I think it's interesting for the league to have to answer this question: why is Kyrie Irving not being held to the same standard that Robert Sarver was held to, that Ime Udoka was held to, that even Daryl Morey, when he tweeted something about Hong Kong when there were games in China, the league came down pretty hard on him. Why has there not been anything for Kyrie Irving, who by all accounts has done something to the level of far more egregious than what Daryl Morey tweeted out? It's his platform. He can say, he can have his beliefs, but at some point there are consequences for that. And I'm very interested to see what the league does. But to the end of it all, Steve Nash just didn't want to be part of the circus.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. Steve Nash was tired of this.
Yeah, I don't blame him at all. And then there's Kevin Durant, who called for Steve Nash to be fired in the offseason, who's like, man, I was really shocked that he was completely let go by the Nets.
So surprising.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. That meme. All right. So Brooklyn, Chinmay, was plus 280 or is plus 285. They were plus 400 to not make the playoffs on the DK Sportsbook. So any interest here, or do you think things turn around in Brooklyn?
It's still very early in the season to say that the Nets won't make the playoffs. I do think, again, the talent has always been there for Brooklyn. It's just a question of whether the drama will take over the talent. And right now, the drama is winning out. I do think that Ime Udoka is a better coach than Steve Nash when it comes to the X's and O's. And if that is indeed the direction that they are going to end up going in, then I do think that ultimately things will turn around. They do have some injury issues right now, but when this roster does ultimately come together and starts playing better basketball, it's still very early in the season. It's only been 8 games. I do think they'll turn things around. The top of the East is good, but the middle of the East, there's a lot of room for separation. And I do think Brooklyn ultimately, they won the play-in tournament last year, or they got out of the play-in tournament last year to make the playoffs. And I think ultimately if it comes down to that, if you need to win one game to make the playoffs, it's pretty good to have Kevin Durant on your team. So I would still take the Nets to make the playoffs. If we're still at this situation 30, 40 games in, then maybe I look into the no. But right now, I would still back the Nets to make the playoffs.
All right. What do you think about this, Nick? I mean, obviously, Steve Nash, just not a great coach. Nets went 94-67 with him at the helm. So do you think this is a good play, or do you think they'll turn around under a better head coach?
I think Jim May said it in that I would think that the Nets find a way to finish in the top 10 during the regular season, and I think they play their way into the playoffs. I don't see them losing in a play-in scenario, and I also don't see them falling that far down the Eastern Conference. Like I don't think I would bet them to finish like in the top 6 in the East if you could find that anywhere on the DK Sportsbook, but I think there will be enough teams that as the season goes along, teams like Charlotte, teams like Washington, Indiana, those are all teams that are ahead of the Nets in the standings right now. They're all going to fall back, whether it's just by virtue of the rosters that they have or by virtue of tanking. And I think by default, the Nets are going to finish in that top 10. Let's say they match up with a team like the Bulls or the Knicks in the play-in. I'm not picking against Kevin Durant, in the 1 or 2 game playoff scenario. So I think they find a way to sneak into the playoffs, but I think this ends up being a really, really stressful season for the Nets, much like last season was. I don't think they really have a clear path out of this, but in terms of making the 8-team field after the play-in tournament, I do think they find a way to get that done.
All right, Nick, let's go ahead and move to tonight's 11-game slate. What's your favorite spread on the board right now, dude?
Yeah, a lot of games to choose from tonight, that is for sure. I'm kind of looking at Philly minus 6.5 against Washington. They've been a little bit shaky. Milwaukee, 11.5-point favorites at home against Detroit. These teams played on Monday. It was a close game. I mean, Milwaukee got out to a huge lead, kind of just milked it the rest of the way. I kind of like Milwaukee to really bring the hammer down, remain undefeated at home over a team that it's very familiar with and clearly has a pretty big talent gap over in Detroit. So kind of hoping that number comes down just a little bit, but even at 11.5, I do like Milwaukee, and also keeping an eye on Toronto minus 7 at San Antonio. The Raptors, as they say, Emerson, have been a bit of a wagon so far. One of those teams that just plays its starters big minutes. You don't really have to worry about weird rotations. Spurs are the complete opposite of that right now. They have some injuries. I think this is a good spot for Toronto on the road.
All right, what's the play tonight, Chinmay?
Yeah, I'd shy against the double-digit spread. Those tend to bite you early in the regular season. I like a handful of underdogs actually tonight against the spread. The Hawks +2 against the Knicks. The Hawks are coming off a tough loss on Monday. They'll try to bounce back against a New York team that has shown some fight early in the year, but Atlanta's the underdog. I would take the Hawks there. The Lakers are +3 against the Pelicans, and I would wait until Anthony Davis news comes out. He's questionable, but it sounds like he's going to play. Lakers are a completely different team with him on the floor, especially defensively. I would like them at +3 against the Pelicans tonight. And then even the Trailblazers against the Grizzlies. I know Damian Lillard is out, but the Blazers have been a great team at home this season. They've been off to a flying start, +5.5. I would expect them to keep things close. So those are 3 underdogs that I would definitely look at for tonight's slate.
All right, Chinmay, which totals interest you tonight? We got, for the Clippers-Rockets game, the total's sitting at 223, but that recent 95-93 result here maybe speaks to going with the under here?
Yeah, the Clippers have been an interesting story to start the season, especially with Kawhi Leonard sitting out games. The Rockets are terrible defensively, but they know how to put up points. So there's always a tough call there with Houston, and then LA has been an interesting team. I would probably go with the under again, but that is a close one for me. Two others that I really like, 76ers Wizards is sitting at 218.5. I think that's kind of low. These teams went over on Monday. Joel Embiid, maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't, but he didn't play in Monday's game, and they still went over this number by a significant margin. So I like that one. And then Hornets Bulls over 224. Bulls are coming off a back-to-back. It's going to be some tired legs. Zach LaVine is not going to play, but the Hornets have been an absolute juggernaut offensively. So I would take Charlotte, and then Charlotte's defensive record. We all know what that has been over the past few years. So I would see over 224 for that game.
All right, Nick, which total interests you here?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're being baited a little bit with this Clippers-Rockets total. I really do like the under there. These are two of the three worst offenses in the league in terms of efficiency right now. The Clippers have really struggled of late. Some rough games by Paul George before hitting that game winner the other night. But I'm keeping an eye on Kings Heat as well. I kind of like the under 220.5 there. Heat are 6.5-point favorites at home, but they're coming in on the second night of a back-to-back. I don't know that Tyler Hero is going to play in this game. He left last night's win over Golden State with an injury, didn't return. Wouldn't be surprised if he sits on the second half of a back-to-back, and Miami needs him. This is a team that's been very up and down on offense. Obviously, moving Tyler Hero into the starting lineup this year, trying to jumpstart some offense. And on the other side, no De'Aaron Fox for the Sacramento Kings. So I think this one could be a little bit of a slog.
All right, boys. Good stuff. Appreciate all the help with the NBA because we got the Gojo guys joining us next. We're going to talk some NFL trade deadline, biggest winners and losers. We're also going to see what they think about all the dysfunction going down in Brooklyn right after this break.
All right, in case you guys didn't know, you can check out The Gojo Show every weekday to hear former Notre Dame teammates Mike Golick Jr. and Brandon Newman giving their takes on the hottest topics across sports and pop culture. You can grab the show wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. I'm talking Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, and more. But you do not have to wait. You can also check them out right here, right now.
That's right. You did such a great job of that, Reed. Better than I do every Wednesday morning.
I know.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mike. Good morning,
You
Brandon.
know what? It doesn't have to be better or worse. You guys, you give great effort, Emerson, and that's what we appreciate. Like, yes,
I mean, she's better
was
than me.
hers
I'm not-
technically better, and was it, more accurate? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's about effort, and we love you.
And Smooth, thank you very much. And Smooth is something we're not seeing with this circus, guys, in Brooklyn right now. Is there an end in sight to all of this dysfunction, Mike? What the hell is going on?
No, the end's only going to come if they keep losing basketball games. That's been the thing that's been made abundantly clear to us now is the Brooklyn Nets are like every other big winning machine in sports. They are going to do whatever it takes in order to get the wins that they believe they've paid for with what they're giving Kyrie Irving, with what they're giving Kevin Durant, and no amount of Kyrie Irving co-signing publicly anti-Semitic documents or propaganda, no amount of whatever has gone on with Ime Udoka and the Boston Celtics that has him suspended from being coaching right now is going to stop them from trying to get to that point. They're counting on, hey, We saw what Ime Udoka did for that Celtics team in the back half of last year. We believe we're only 8 games in and that he can help turn this around for a team that didn't really seem to be vibing with their coach going back to this offseason.
Yeah, Brandon, this is the greatest soap opera in sports right now. Drama galore. Nash couldn't unlock the potential of this team. Who can? Can anyone?
I think it's one of those player-led teams. So I think Kevin Durant needs to put his LeBron James hat on, his Jackie Moon hat, and try to player coach this thing, wrangle Kyrie Irving the best way he possibly can. What I want to talk about is how they're not a great basketball team either. Like I think that's an important thing. Anytime you lose to the Pacers, it's time to hit the panic button. And the Lakers takes all this flack this entire time, where the Nets are actually the favorites right now are up there in the East, where my lonely Lakers need to be left alone. Like they can lose in peace. We're not some of the best players of basketball.
I can see what this is about now.
What
this
is
is
it
about
about?
Brandon trying to shift blame away from the Los Angeles Lakers from not being a good basketball team. Brandon, I appreciate the spin zone.
Brandon, the Nets have just one more win than the Lakers, too.
Brandon is like,
Thank you.
would
You're
never.
First of all, how dare you?
What do you mean?
Are you talking to me? First of all, how dare you? All right, let's talk NFL trade deadline,
this
okay?
is so much better. So much better.
It was insanely busy. 12 trades going down on Tuesday. That's like the most active day in NFL history. All right, Vikings trade within the division. They grab tight end TJ Hawkinson from the Lions for some draft picks. Like, Brandon, were you surprised to see this deal? We got the Vikings trying to keep pace with the Eagles, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Vikings are top 5 in the NFL. I think that's clear for a lot of people, but for the Lions to make them stronger and make themselves weaker in the same move is very confusing to me. You're talking about Jared Goff, a quarterback that needs TJ Hawkinson, needs every weapon that he possibly can, since the Lions have been up and down, and they're going to be the worst team possible. I guess they're clearing the way for a quarterback, Mike. Is that what's going on here? Because it just doesn't make sense to strengthen someone else in your division like this.
Yeah, and this has been interesting for Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, who's the GM at the Vikings, for doing a couple of trades in division here in recent years. And you could argue, hey, giving them draft capital is not a thing that you want to be doing at this juncture. But for the Vikings, you need to get a tight end out there. Irv Smith a little banged up. And so TJ Hawkinson's a great player. I'm just struck that the Lions, who are trying to build the foundation for whoever's going to be playing quarterback in the future, and it's not going to be Jared Goff, to all of a sudden give up a 25-year-old who is one of the better tight ends in the NFL, a guy that can do a little bit of everything there and has really been the only consistently healthy and productive part of that offense, was a head scratcher.
Dude, sneaky and like a cheap good get for the Vikings. Mike, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, and now like TJ Hawkinson. And I feel like, why haven't we been talking about the 6-1 Vikings at all this season? Is it just because the Eagles?
A lot of it's the Eagles thing. They haven't really played any. Like it's not a. I don't want to do the too much. They haven't played anybody thing, but they haven't really had to go out here and have a lot of banner wins at this point. We talked about how the NFC North has really been lacking as a division, top to bottom. And so I think there's some people that look question marks like that, but a lot of it's Kirk Cousins, man. We feel like we know how this story ends. We feel like we know that even if we put our trust in this team during the regular season, we're going to find the ceiling that has always existed for this Minnesota Vikings team led by Kirk Cousins, and that's a hard thing mentally to overcome.
Okay, Brandon, doesn't sound like you're a Kirk Cousins believer.
No, I am a Kirk Cousins believer. I'm actually more of a Justin Jefferson believer. We have one of the best wide receivers in the NFL that just gets ignored year in, year out because the quarterback is Kirk Cousins. And everyone thinks of those stats as empty calories. But I think that team is real. I think the defense is getting better. They showed out on Jared Allen night, which I was so happy to see him ride in on that Bronco. I feel like Zadarius Smith, he won Defensive Player of the Week for the NFC. I just think that they're trending in the right direction, and we have to start paying attention to them. If the Bengals can make it to the Super Bowl, then so can the Vikings.
Yeah, for sure. Brandon, what grade are you giving the Bears here at the trade deadline? So they shipped off Roquan Smith, but they gave up a second-round pick here to grab wide receiver Chase Claypool, which will obviously help that young quarterback.
If I'm grading for this season, I'm going a C plus. If I'm grading for the overall growth of this team, probably a B minus. I think losing Roquan Smith, obviously he was going to be on his way out anyways. He didn't want to be there anymore. But adding Chase Claypool helps Justin Fields in a way. But losing Roquan Smith after you already lost Robert Quinn, I just feel like that defense is going to get even more anemic. And, that's it for the season when it comes to hoping for anything. But for the future, yeah, maybe they can do something.
Yeah,
also, were the Packers just like, no!
Yeah, dude, seriously.
Chase Claypool!
I mean, like, the division was interesting, whether it was the moves that, the teams in the NFC North were making, Mike, or, yes, in the Packers situation,
they made an offer too, yeah.
Make.
Yeah, the Packers situation is really interesting, right? Because with Aaron Rodgers, and you could have argued with the Bucs with Tom Brady, you're dealing with closing windows of old quarterbacks, and to not do anything might look to a lot of people like laying down. Now, maybe the Packers can say, hey, you know what? You go back to the game against the Bills, and we can start to see at the end of that game some of our young receivers coming on in a certain way. I feel like Matt LaFleur and the front office have been a little more behind them than, say, Aaron Rodgers has been publicly. We saw a lot of those comments made on the Pat McAfee show that seemed to be aimed at some of the young pass catchers in this offense. So they've been constantly at odds with Aaron Rodgers as far as the front office and not. But the Bears thing, guys, it's kind of weird mixed messages, right? Because you're giving up all this stuff on defense. You look like you're turning the page and resetting. And then at the same time, you go up and give up a better second-round pick to bring in a receiver in Chase Claypool that I like. So Notre Dame guy is a good receiver. He's not a great receiver by any stretch. Has been inconsistently productive in Pittsburgh. I really think this is just about, though, Justin Fields has been trending up in recent weeks. You're starting to get a better look and a better feel for your quarterback. And we know in this league, anything you can do as a team to give yourself and give your young quarterback a better chance to go out and succeed, and for you a better chance to go and evaluate him in an offense that's going to do more things that you want to see, be able to have a passing option outside of Mooney and Cole Kmet in the tight end room, do a little bit more than just turning Justin Fields loose as a really dynamic runner. I think part of that has to be the thought process here for the Bears.
Sheesh.
Dude, yeah, we didn't even talk about the Jaguars acquiring Calvin Ridley.
Okay.
So next year, we don't have Super Bowl odds.
We're not going to
Super
talk
Bowl
about
odds
that.
for 2023 are not on the DK
We're
Sportsbook
not going
app,
to
but
talk
keep an
about
eye
that.
on it.
We're not going to talk about that.
because we're running tight on
It's
time.
the same story every year with you. It's disgusting. All right, Gojo Rose time, guys. Mike, who or what earns the rose this week?
I give my rose to Derrick Henry this week.
Yes.
I feel like we've kind of left the Titans for dead after last year, but his 6th career 200-yard rushing game ties, I believe, O.J. Simpson and Adrian Peterson for the most in NFL history. He's going to own that record by himself. He started a rookie quarterback in Malik Willis, who had, I think, 67 combined yards of total offense in that game. Everybody knew it was the Derrick Henry show, and it didn't stop the show from being a banger. So King Henry coming back from injury and still being insanely productive in a situation where he really shouldn't be is really, really impressive.
Dude, 4th consecutive 200-yard rushing game against the Texans. Like, I'm amused at it. I'm just like, dude, we're just not going to play this game. Like, we'll forfeit this.
All right, Brandon, your rose.
Well, I think Christian McCaffrey kind of took it from me. I think he took it from everyone this week. This is the Christian McCaffrey week where he challenged Jimmy Garoppolo for the best quarterback on that team with a touchdown pass and an amazing catch, one of the best wide receivers on that team. I just think that when we're talking about big teams and big trade deadlines and big moves they made, the 49ers are right up there because of Christian McCaffrey. He makes Jimmy Garoppolo look like Tom Brady. You got to take the 49ers a lot more seriously with him on that team.
All right. You two guys dishing out your roses to some beefy running backs around the NFL. Love it. We love you two, meat wagons. Have a good day. Gonna miss you guys.
You too, guys.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Be nice to each other.
No, I'm nice all the time.
I will not.
I love how this is live across the world on YouTube. People see how she bullies me.
You have to earn.
Anywho.
it, and you fail me
All right.
every day.
We
Good luck, Jesse.
we have Game 4 of the World Series. Some odds to dive into and some best bets coming up after this.
You want to be a showstopper? You want to be awesome? Then you'll want to have a game plan. Whether you're a champion or a bettor, you gotta be responsible. Have a realistic budget? then bet within your means. Set a time limit, then stick to it. And use the DraftKings Sportsbook and Casino apps. They offer all these tools and more so you can practice safe bets. Can I get a mic to drop?
It's the biggest postseason ever. So DraftKings Sportsbook wants you to win big too. New customers bet just $5 to win $200 in free bets if your team wins. More teams, more games, and a November World Series? Huge. Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, sign up with the promo code, and bet $5 to win $200 if your team wins. Action's so good, why bet MLB anywhere else?
Hold up. DraftKings, you're telling me that you're boosting same-game parlays? Well, that's big time. Actually, big is big enough. We're going to need a new word. Jumbo-munganous. No, tremendous. Gargantuloso. Ah, see? The pink duck gets it.
DraftKings stepped up same-game parlays. Boost your winnings up to 100% for our biggest payouts ever. Action's so good, why bet NFL anywhere else?
What'd you say, Carl?
In 2019, DraftKings and the Larry Fitzgerald Foundation launched the Pinkham program, which has raised over $300,000 to support breast cancer research. Thank you to everyone who has participated in this cause that is dear to my heart, and to DraftKings for pledging to raise another $100,000 this football season for Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October. Visit DraftKings.com/search to enter weekly Pinkham pools all October.
Dude, on Tuesday night, the Phillies could not stop mashing piss missiles. They tied the record for most taters hit in a World Series game. They belted five freaking home runs in a 7-0 win over Houston. Jesse?
By the way, all
What?
five of those coming off starter Lance McCullers.
Oh!
Sheesh! Also a record for most homers surrendered by a pitcher in the Fall Classic.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he was like tipping his pitches. So now we're just 2 Phillies wins away from RotoWire's Eric Halterman streaking through the streets of downtown Philadelphia. Good to have DraftKings contributor Gary Thorne here as well. Oh, man. Eric, I think about you every night when I'm watching the Phillies. Every night, dude.
Yeah,
You
before we
streaking.
actually dive into Game 4, Eric, how were your boys able to just tee off against McCullers like that last night?
First of all, just gotta say, a little nervous about Emerson saying he thinks about me every night right after talking about me naked.
Yeah,
But
I know.
We'll move.
Sorry.
We'll move past that one. And yeah, it really seemed like something was up with McCullers. It seemed like there was something about maybe his leg kick was different on the fastball versus the off speed. Something like that seemed to be what was going around. And you could tell the Phillies were talking about it and knew about it. But man, even if they weren't, this offense has been teeing off on pitchers throughout the postseason. So we know they can go off at any time. What impressed me the most was they got this game done with none of their quote-unquote good pitchers on the mound. It was 5 shutout innings from Ranger Suarez, and then Connor Brogdon, Kyle Gibson, Nick Nelson, Andrew Bellotti. Although I think that framing doesn't give Ranger Suarez nearly enough respect. I think he was down this year compared to last year, but the guy who had that absurd 1.36 ERA in 2021 still exists. And that guy spent time as both a starter and a reliever, and that flexibility has already helped the Phillies this postseason. I bet it's going to come up again if this series stretches more than, say, just 5 games. But I guess as a Phillies fan, I'll hope that we don't need to see Suarez again.
Yeah, Gary, and Phillies are 6-0 at Citizens Bank Park this postseason. They've outscored their opponents 42-15 in the 6 games and out-homered them 17-6.
Damn.
I mean, this was the formula, though, right? This
Yeah.
was how the Phillies were actually going to get this done. You know, there are a couple teams in baseball that sort of were striving to be this. Like, let's put together an insane lineup and hope that it just covers up, you know, the bullpen woes and some of our defensive efficiencies. And right now, the Phillies are mashing home runs, and that's what it takes. You know, this is a crazy lineup from top to bottom. You've got, you know, even a bottom of the lineup that features, like, you know, Bryson Stott has some nice prospect pedigree. He was really good over the second half of the season. Gene Segura is one of the most, like, stable, established middle infield veterans you could possibly ask for on a roster. They've got great right-handed, left-handed balance in their lineup, which I think is really important for tonight's game. A little foreshadowing. But, yeah, I mean, look, Lance McCullers coming into that game last night had 10 starts this season, 8 in the regular season, 2 in the playoffs. He'd given up 4 home runs combined in those 10 starts. The fact that 3 were also hit by left-handed batters, I think, was really, really insane, considering that in 2022, in the regular season, he'd faced 96 left-handed batters. They'd basically hit 150 off him. The only thing lefties had been able to do was be patient and take walks. That was like the only flaw McCullers had within that split during the course of the regular season. And suddenly everyone's hitting long balls off him, including Brandon Marsh of all people. So yeah, look, I feel like every time we talked about the Phillies, we'd always been like, okay, well, they got to win the Wheeler starts. They got to win the Nola starts. And if they can win enough of those, they're going to blah, 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 blah. They've won the last 3 times. Wheeler and Nola haven't had to start. Like, if they're winning those games, they're unstoppable. Like, that's just really what this is.
So Philly has a 2-1 lead. Should look familiar to Astros fans because this is their 3rd straight World Series that they've been down 2-1 after Game 3, although they've lost the last 2. So that was 2021, 2019. Let's continue covering the bases, though, here, Eric. Jared Carrabis was on our show yesterday. His hot take was the series would not get back to Houston. So pretty much whoever won Game 3 would win the series. Do you feel that way after last night? On the DK Sportsbook, you can get the Phillies for a gentleman's sweep, winning 4-1 at plus 320 odds right now.
Yeah, welcome to the Phillies bandwagon.
Yeah.
Nice to have you on board. The Phillies have yet to lose a home postseason game, so maybe. I don't think the price is crazy. The thing that gives me pause is going to be that Game 5, because as of right now, it still looks like the Phillies plan to send out Noah Syndergaard and not Zach Wheeler.
Ooh.
They're going with the extra rest for Wheeler, thinking that, he's only going to pitch once more this season at most anyway. Might as well have him at maximum strength for that, and I kind of get that. But if the Phillies are up 3-1, are they just going to send out Wheeler to close the deal at home? If we get any inkling that that is possible, then suddenly this price looks good. I don't think I can bet right now on Syndergaard beating Justin Verlander, even if Justin Verlander has been shaking this postseason. But plus 320, not a crazy price at all. If these were 2 coin flips, it would only be plus 300. So you're already baking in the fact that it's less likely than not that the Phillies are, completely 50-50 in both of those games. I didn't say that very well, but basically the point here is that you're getting a fine price.
Yeah.
I'm nervous about it, but I would be a lot happier with it if there's any hint that Wheeler might start if they get the chance to close things out.
Gary, and let me interject here.
Okay.
In all best-of-7 postseason series, teams up 3-1 have gone on to win the series 85% of the time. In series with the 2-3-2 format, teams holding a 3-1 lead and playing Game 5 at home, which the Phillies would do if they win, have gone on to win 82% of the time.
Oh my God!
Wow.
So
it's like the Astros win tonight or it's over.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a stats guy, but between the last, the 50-50s and the things and the formats, my brain's starting to hurt a little bit. I'll say this. Again, simplicity is sometimes best. I had one note written down for this question, and it was the same kind of tangent that Eric just went off on, which is Verlander versus Noah Syndergaard. That's a pretty daunting task for the Phillies. And I would also agree with the sort of organizational approach they might have right now, which is if they do win this game tonight, especially with the velocity dip in the late innings we've seen with Zach Wheeler, his last couple of appearances. Again, this is someone who did not pitch for majority of August and September. He came back and looked great, but I think we have to remember that. I would also be inclined to just say, hey, man, when are you going to be at your best? Is it going to be in Game 5 or Game 6? And if the consensus is he'll be better in Game 6, you might as well save him for Game 6. Because I think at this point, with the way the rain and the pushback of some of these later games in the series is all worked out, there's a pretty decent chance you'll start Nola on 3 days rest in Game 7 if it gets that far. So I think this is all setting up pretty well for the Phillies in general. Yeah. I know you should probably go for the jugular when you can. I get that sensibility. You don't want to keep a team like the Astros alive longer than you should. But especially if they win tonight, I just think that killer instinct in Game 5 maybe won't be there like it would be if Zach Wheeler hadn't been on the IL for a month and a half prior to the playoffs.
All right, moving on to this Game 4, Javier versus Nola on the mound. Who has the edge here? Nola has struggled, Gary, in his last 2 postseason starts, 11 runs on 13 hits, including 4 homers in 9 innings.
So I'm still going to give the advantage to Nola. I think that Javier is a fantastic pitcher. I mean, his numbers down the stretch of September were astonishing for the Astros. Wasn't like the highest level of competition he was facing. Some Baltimores, some Detroits in there as he was just absolutely, taking the mound and taking people's breath away in the second half of the season. But Nola was just as good after the All-Star break. I mean, this is someone who had a 30.7% strikeout rate, a 2.22 FIP. Yes, he has struggled in his last two starts, but I think for me, the big differentiator between these two pitchers, and I think this is big for Showdown tonight as well, is Nola doesn't beat himself. Nola had a 99th percentile walk rate this season. He is going to make the Astros have to actually hit their way on base. And they might do that. They might. But he's going to make them have to score runs. Where Javier has serious walk issues, and they've presented in the playoffs time after time. He's got 14 career walks in just over 26 playoff innings across the entirety of his career. I don't think right now you can give the Phillies free base runners. I think that's a recipe for just terribleness if you're the Houston Astros. And I also think we might see like a Dusty Baker overreaction tonight. This is more of like a Showdown sort of thought process, but trusting Javier is a little scary because I think the Astros are going to have a super short leash on him. I think if he walks a couple guys to start the third inning, that bullpen is going to be working because everyone in the world has been talking about how Dusty Baker left Lance McCullers in too long in Game 3. Maybe he overreacts and pulls his starter very quickly at the first sign of trouble tonight.
All right, Eric, real quick, what do you think? Who's got the edge?
I think it's Phillies. I think it's a slight edge. I'm not too worried about Nola being hit around a bit in the postseason. His last couple starts, his ERA is up above 4.5, but his postseason Sierra, which is one of my favorite of the ERA estimators, that's still down at 279. In the regular season, it was at 280. So that says he's been exactly the same guy. Still has the same excellent control. He's just gotten hit a few times. When you throw in the extra factors, the Philly home crowd, I'm not a big home field advantage guy, but to the extent that it exists, it's clear that it exists in Philadelphia. Philly's lineup's very hot. Philly's pen is well rested. Granted, the Astros pen's well rested too, but that matters more for the Phillies because the gap between their top relievers and the second tier is much larger than it is in Houston.
All right, guys, need you super quick on this last one. We are tight on time. Favorite bet for Game 4 tonight, Eric?
Let's go with a fun one. Harper and Schwarber combined homers over half is at plus 150. So just one of them to homer, you get plus 150. Christian Javier had a ground ball rate of 26% this season. It didn't actually turn into a home run problem, but one of the biggest predictors of future home run problems is giving up a lot of fly balls. So I like that bet there.
Yep, beautiful night from both of them last night. Garion.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. I'm going to take over 4.5 hits allowed for Aaron Nola. I just think he works deep into this game. He doesn't walk anybody. The Astros don't strike out. That's a lot of batted ball events. I think some of them find holes. Again, it's not saying he's going to pitch poorly. I just think he pitches 6-7 innings. They get 5 hits, which Nola's done in his last 3 starts. That is plus 100 as well.
All right, good stuff, guys. Thank you. Up next, we go back to talk a little NFL as we look at game totals for Week 9. Can Geno Magic continue in the desert this weekend? Jeff and Pierce are going to weigh in next. DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich and Pierce Dietrich are in the house. We're doing a little NFL over-under for Week 9, so will the following teams go over or under their projected totals? So what are the highest totals of the week? Pierce, it's your favorite team. The Seahawks against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
In Arizona, number here is 50.5. Do you like the over?
Look, they're not my favorite team.
Yes,
People
they
gonna
are.
It is.
Fine, they're my favorite team.
Thank
I'll
you.
go
Yeah,
out and get one of those neon yellow T-shirts and start rooting for the Hawks.
Green. It's lime green, pal. Get it right.
Oh, is it lime
You're gonna be
green?
a
I'm
Seahawks
sorry.
guy.
See,
Get it correct.
yeah, so I must not be much of a fan if I don't know the correct, colors or whatever. But I think Seattle's going to be fine, but I don't like the over. This is a rematch from a couple weeks ago where we had a 50 over-under, and the teams barely hit half of that. Seattle likes to play defense and grind games out. I just don't see Pete Carroll wanting to put a lot of points on the board. They're 4-4 to the over this season, and the times that Seattle has gone over, it's been against really bad defenses. Arizona, their defense, it's not great, but it has improved. They're halfway decent. And Arizona's only gone over 3 times this year, and 2 of those were blowouts. I don't expect this to be a blowout. The other was 2 of those are blowout losses. I don't expect this to be a blowout loss. And the other one was a crazy game against New Orleans, and I don't expect that either. So, go Seattle, but I don't expect a lot of points.
All right, Jeff, do you expect this to go over the point total?
So before I get into my answer, we do need our graphics team to get on this. We need Pierce down in the Seattle fish markets, catching a big one from Geno Smith. He's got to have the apron on. He's got to get in there with the fish. He's cutting it up. Geno's back there. That's what we need. Pierce is the biggest Seattle fan I've ever met. I love it.
Wow.
Yes, we're going over here though, Pierce. What is different now between these two teams? Oh, DeAndre Hopkins is back. Arizona has smashed the over in their last 2 games. They're moving the ball. These are 2 faster-paced teams as well. I don't think you're going to see a rematch of the 19-9 Borefest that we saw last game. Arizona's been quicker paced last 2 games, and I think that Seattle on the road has also been trending towards overs. 4-1 over on the road. I think this one actually is going to see a lot of points. I'm going to take the over here.
All right, dudes. Let's go now to the Bucks and the Rams. A couple teams that have hit rock bottom recently. 42.5. Is that a reachable number for these 2 offenses, Jeff?
Yeah, it is. This is this one just sort of screamed out to me the most. This is a very low number. You look at what these 2 teams have done when they faced each other over the past few years, like when Brady and Stafford have been there too. They've really put up some points. I mean, last year, 2 meetings between these 2 teams. One of them was in the playoffs, but well over 45 points. I'm just not scared of what these defenses are offering up right now. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers allowed 27 points to the Ravens, who were, a hobbled Mark Andrews, had Isaiah Likely back there. They couldn't stop anything. And the Rams, I mean, they've just looked terrible all year. Yes, we're relying on 2 offenses here who've also struggled a bit, but I think that the offenses are probably going to win out against a couple of defenses that just haven't really looked that good. Give me the over here. I think this number will actually get up as the week goes on. People start to clue in that, this is a really low number considering what these 2 teams kind of did between each other last season.
Pierce, Bucks were the betting favorite to win the NFC before the season. Now they're just minus 125 to win their own division, man. They got enough offense in this one?
No, Jeff says these offenses have struggled a bit. Tampa is last in rush offense. Los Angeles is bottom 5 in rushing offense. Their offensive lines are falling apart. And I mean, just look at their over-unders. Tampa has hit 2 this season. Los Angeles has hit 2 this season. In all the other games, they're going under. I just don't know how you can have any confidence in these offenses whatsoever. Tom Brady, look, we come on here all the time and talk about, boy, he looks rough. We come on here all the time, boy, Stafford in this offense doesn't look the same. How could you bet the over? I know the number is low, but on the other hand, you also have a top 5 defense, DVOA-wise, in Tampa, and you have a near top 10 defense in Los Angeles. The reason this number is low is because the defenses are much better than these really struggling offenses.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Defenses allowed 58 points combined last week, Pierce. That doesn't sound very good to me, but okay.
Oh, that's a good
One
counterpoint.
game. Let's go with 1 game sample sizes.
Yeah, no.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. 1 game size. That's exactly
All
what
right,
I'm doing. Yeah.
we'll bring Pierce on for the slate tonight. We'll talk more about this.
Yeah, that's great. Pierce, earlier we talked about the TJ Hawkinson trade with the Gojo guys. His new team, the Vikings, in Washington to take on the Commanders, who are maybe for sale. Can their new tight end help the Vikings offense and get this game over the 43.5 point total? 6 of the last 7 games between these teams have hit the over, Pierce.
I don't know how much Hawkinson's going to be able to jump in and learn the scheme with an offense with new offensive coordinators this season. It's a little bit more complicated. but they don't really need Hawkinson to do that much. The Vikings have plenty of offensive firepower. You worry if Kirk Cousins is going to have one of those Kirk Cousins type performances where he doesn't show up, but this really shouldn't be the case against one of the worst pass defenses in the Washington Commanders. Cousins and that team have plenty of firepower to get over it. So then you worry, can Washington do their part? I don't have much confidence in Heineke, but I do like him in garbage time. I like the scrambling quarterback playing from behind. He's got decent receiving options. He's got receiving running back options, which work really well against prevent defenses. You get some garbage points here and there. And also, if you look, Minnesota is going over in 4 of the last 5. And one of the reasons why they've gone over in those, and they're all 5 wins, is because they're not closing games out. They're going to leave the door open. Washington will get some points at the end, and this should go over.
Jeff, the Vikings offense generating on average 24.7 points per game. Commanders putting up 17.8. That is under the total that's listed.
There you go. And I'm going to disagree with I love it when Pierce and I are on the different side of everything. Makes for a good show. I'm going under here as well. Ideally, this number, I'd like it at 44. It may get up to there, but even at 43.5, I'm going to lean under here. The 2 of the 3 road games that Minnesota's played, I mean, they have not looked good. They got handed to them, their offense, in Philly. And then, the game against Miami as well. Like, it was kind of an ugly win. 40 points scored there. I think you're going to see another game. Pierce mentioned the secondary Washington. They have made some changes. They have been a lot better over the last couple of games. The defense in Washington is starting to finally come together. I think that they're going to play a slow, grinded out game. I think Taylor Heineke is going to be able to move the ball a little bit on the ground. And I think Washington, there's a good chance to get out to a lead. And this just ends up as a kind of a boring game where maybe Minnesota makes a late, valiant effort to kind of grab a late score. Justin Jefferson does something to get them in front. But I see a 20-23 game, maybe even lower scoring than that. I think the under here is the play.
Hey, Pierce, Falcons first place in the NFC South right now. They've won 4 out of their last 6. Odds makers, not believers, though. They are home underdogs against the Chargers. The total in Atlanta, 49.5. You want over or under that, dude?
I'll take the over. The odds makers are right to not be believers in the Falcons. That defense got a couple holes. I mean, they almost gave up 500 passing yards to Joe Burrow. And then last week, Donta Foreman, looking like a Pro Bowler, made the Panthers look like a legitimate team. That's a bit of a problem. You got the Chargers coming off a bye. They really need a win. I mean, if Burrow can go for 500, then Herbert's going to go for 500. You got Eckler, should have a pretty solid game. I have no worries about the Chargers putting up points. And the Falcons' offense is ugly, and we don't like to look at it, but they move the ball. They get points on the board. They've obviously won 4 games. I don't know where the points are going to come from, but they're going to come from somewhere. The Chargers will allow it. This game's going over.
Jeff, Pierce is not a believer in the Falcons, but I believe you are.
I am, and listen, we're going to agree for once on this show, but I would grab this one while it's still under 50 and take the over as well. Everything Pierce alluded to is correct. I mean, the Falcons have a weak secondary. They're not going to be able to stop Justin Herbert at all. And on the other side, guess what the Falcons like to do? They like to run the ball. And they have a legit young RB in Tyler Algier who's going to go over 100 yards against this Chargers rush defense because it's terrible. You look at the overs between these two teams too, 9-6 on the season. I don't know how Atlanta does it either, but they do it. They're a very effective offense. Marcus Mariota out there freezing defenses with his legs. They're 6th and 3rd down conversion rates. I think the Falcons are, again, going to be able to move the ball. And, again, their secondary is not going to be able to stop Justin Herbert. So this one is definitely going over. Again, I expect this total to go over 50, perhaps even by a point here by the time we get to kickoff.
All right, fellas, thank you so much. Jeff, stick around because we are just literally rolling into golf right now as we speak. We have Jeff Ulrich here. We are bringing in RotoWire senior golf writer Len Hochberg for PGA Tour price checks. So we're going to talk price ranges for the Worldwide Technology Championship at Mayakoba. Jeff, double barrel 11K golfers on the board. You got Scheffler and Hovland. Which one is worth paying up for? I mean, Hovland is going to be the chalk, but Scheffler was in the running for the win for this last year before a late double bogey took him out.
4th place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this one really just comes down to game theory, I think, for me. I mean, Scotty Scheffler probably trending with about half the ownership of Victor Hovland this week. He's still the number 2 player in the world. I will pay up for him. I mean, it's just one of those things when you're in a big GPP, you can get such good leverage here if we get a prime, comeback from Scotty Scheffler. Obviously, you have to worry a little bit about the recent form. Scheffler's putter didn't show up at the Zozo, but this is a completely different venue that we're getting. It was a venue where he putted and did everything well last year. He didn't make a bogey at this course last year. He made 2 double bogeys. So he got in trouble like once or twice off the tee, and that was it. Otherwise, Scheffler easily could have been right there with Hovland. I know Hovland owns this course, but again, got to take that strategy into account. I would take the lower ownership on Scheffler here. I think he's a good starting point. There's some players down the field you can mix him in with.
Len, do you agree? Like projected ownership, maybe you want to mix things up and go with Scheffler?
Well, you have to take the ownership into consideration. I would like to point out that with a field of 132, more than half the field will make the cut. That means a lot of 6,000s will make the cut. That means we can go with Scheffler or Hovland, whoever your favorite is, and not fear putting some lower price guys in your lineup to balance it out. I still think Hovland has an edge here. He is the king of Paspalum greens. He's won twice here. He won Puerto Rico. Granted, Puerto Rico, not a good field, but he talks about these greens being so much slower than we normally see, Bermuda, bent, whatever. And that really helps in play here. And also the fact that the greens are large. He can avoid scrambling, which is his kryptonite. I am not willing to pass on Victor Hovland until I see it.
All right, Len. Let's go now to Morikawa, Finau, Wise, Horschel. They're all north of 10K. Who do you have the most interest in here?
I have the most interest in avoiding Colin Morikawa, who I have not been avoiding. I keep thinking, as a lot of us do, he's Colin Morikawa. He's got to win sometime, but it just isn't happening. He talked about what a difficult season it was this year. At some point, Colin Morikawa will win, and I will miss it. But I don't know how quickly that's going to come, and so I'm going to wait for that. Tony Finau has not played since the Tour Championship. Yes, he played the President's Cup, played okay. I like Aaron Wise and Billy Horschel, both coming in on form. Both have played well here. Aaron Wise second to Hovland in 2020 here. With all the 6,000s making the cut, you could even, if you wanted to, somehow put Wise and Horschel in the same lineup.
Yeah, Jeff, top 5 Tony, man. He's a Mayakoba regular. Top 10 here last year. One and only official fall start he's making right now.
Yeah, that's the only thing that worries you, right? It's his only false start. I would lean Aaron Wise here over Finau, but Finau would probably be my second man in for this range. I tried to talk myself into Colin Morikawa earlier this week. I just can't do it. I mean, at this point, I think you just need to see the putter flip. It might be a week too late, but I don't know how much more we can just keep piling into this guy at these prices. So I think Aaron Wise does everything that Victor Hovland does, very similar. He's not great around the greens, but that doesn't matter at this course. He was second here to Hovland, obviously, a couple of years back, and he's playing very well. He's got a lot of confidence with his putter right now. I think Wise is kind of like the recent form, and yeah, he's going to have a little bit of ownership, but I feel most comfortable going to him this week over Billy Horschel. And like I said, I think Finau is fine. If you want to use him as a second man with Wise, or maybe like pair him and Hovland or him and Scheffler, as Lena said, like this is a tiny bit of a smaller field, 135, 132 players. A lot of those guys in 6K range are going to make cuts. So Finau is definitely viable if you're going to go stars and scrubs this week.
All right, Jeff, what's your favorite value play here? Really, stars and scrubs. Go scrub, scrub, scrub.
Scrub, scrub, scrub.
Well, yeah, let's go all the way down. I mean, we've talked about this build, so let's get scrubby. I mean, 6,300 is Ryan Moore. Now, Ryan Moore has not done much on the PGA Tour, but where does he pop up? He tends to pop up at these resort, shorter courses. He's gained strokes on approach now in 5 straight PGA starts. He's got 2 top 30 finishes in his last 4 starts. It doesn't sound like that much, but at 6,300, if Ryan Moore is putting in a T28 for you, that's not going to be your problem. That's fine. And I think if you're ever going to see him pop up again with like a top 10, it'll be at an event like this. He's finished top 10 at this event. He's won twice over in Malaysia back in the early 2010s, which is a course that featured slower Paspalum greens. So if he's going to pop up this fall, it's going to be this week. And even if he just makes the cut, he's not going to hurt your lineup. I think there's a potential we see more like pop with the top 20 here. So that's going to be my major value call of the week.
Len, where are you going for value?
Yeah, into the 6,000, $6,700. John Ha, he won here back in 2012. Not looking at that so much, but ever since then, he's only missed 2 cuts since winning in 2012. All of those cashes have been inside the top 30, 15th last year, 20th the year before, and all the way down at 6,400. Ben Martin, good greens in regulation guy, top 50 in the early going in greens in regulation, average putter, has not played Mayakoba since 2019. but he was 20th back then.
All right, gentlemen, let's wrap up the show with your favorite DFS play for the Worldwide Technology Championship of Manitoba. Jeff Ulrich.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah,
I'm going to go with Jason Day, and it's 9,200. But what we've seen from Jason Day is elite ball striking late. This course has tended to gravitate towards veterans. I just think that this could be the week for Jason Day to pop off. He's not going to have to worry about his around the green. We need that putter to show up, but it showed up in his last start. 2 top 12 finishes. He's feeling it. He's feeling good. He's in a warm climate here in Mexico. What could go wrong? We're going to go with Jason Day as our top play here this week.
Famous last words when you roster that guy. What could go wrong with Jason Day, who, by the way, your boy Jason Sobel, fading big time. Len, who's your favorite DFS play?
Sucks to be him.
Favorite DFS play, not a guy I think will win, but just a guy I think we can put into every lineup. $7,600. Aaron Rye was not big on Aaron Rye last week when he was $10,000. Granted, this is a much stronger field, and 7,600 is where he should be, but he's really accurate off the tee, really accurate from the fairway, was 15th here last year at 7,600. He could fit into everybody's lineup.
All right, that's the show. We got Madden coming up. We got the slate this evening with Emerson and Jeff, and we'll be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. See you then.
Bye.